Welcome to the January 12th, 2021 Planning Board meeting for the town of Danvers. As a preliminary matter, this is John Farmer, Chair of the Planning Board. With me tonight, I have Josh Morris as support staff from the town's planning division. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipating on the agenda are present and can hear me. Jim Sears.
Yep.
Peg Zielinski.
Here.
Lou George.
Here.
Tori Adler.
I'm here.
And Josh, can you hear me? Josh Morris.
Present.
Terrific. Good evening. This opening meeting of the Danvers Planning Board is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a public, accessible, physical location. Further, all members of the public body are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which can be found posted on the town's website, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comments. For this meeting, the Planning Board is convening remotely via the WebEx app as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being reduced, so permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, question, or motions. Please hold until your name is called further. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to converse with each other, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. For items with public comments, we have established an email address for public comments, jmorris@danversmass.gov. This email address is shown online with the streaming of this meeting. Residents may email comments and they will be provided read out loud after staff has confirmed the name and address. All emails must contain the date and phrase Planning Board meeting in the subject line. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by a roll call vote. So the first item, 82 Sylvan Street, request for a special permit and site plan approval submitted by MJP Properties, Inc. for properties at 82 Sylvan Street pursuant to Section 30 and Section 4 of the zoning bylaws. Said property is in Residential I zoning district. The applicant is proposing to construct a duplex behind the existing single-family house. Assessors map 57, lot 25. So I'll turn that over to the applicant. I believe it's Attorney McCann.
Yes. Thank you very much. I hope that you can hear me. My name is Nancy McCann. I'm here on behalf of the applicant MJ Properties, Inc. With me tonight is Michael Panzero from MJ Properties. Also with me tonight is the project engineer, Bob Griffin. And we are before you requesting site plan approval for a multifamily development and special permit for the property located at 82 Sylvan Street in the R1 zoning district. This property was acquired by the applicant in 2019. Since that time, he has been conducting renovations and rehabilitations of the existing single-family home that was built about 1900. It was in pretty dilapidated condition when he purchased the property, and he's been working on rehabbing that property, meaning new siding, new windows, interior renovations, no increase in the building footprint or square footage of that existing single-family home. That home is located on the property as you're looking at the property from Sylvan Street, on the front left of the site, and that is proposed to remain in that position, with it being fully renovated, so that the streetscape will be maintained as it has been along Sylvan Street since about 1900. The proposal is to place a duplex, 2 units attached, duplex at the rear of the property on the right-hand side. And by doing that, we are putting ourselves into the category of multifamily, even though we're talking about a single family and then a duplex at the back right corner of the property. Putting us into the multifamily category means different dimensional requirements under the zoning bylaw. So we have proceeded to receive the necessary zoning relief in the form of a very small 1-foot frontage variance, also a small lot area variance, as well as some variances for distances between buildings as it relates to the existing single-family home and the existing garage on the property, and the existing single-family home and the abutting property at 80 Sylvan Street. The proposed duplex is fully conforming. It meets all setback requirements, so no zoning relief was necessary as it relates to the duplex proposed in the rear of the property. So that new duplex is fully conforming. Also, and as I said, we have gone to the Board of Appeals, and we do have our decisions with regard to the frontage in the area and distance between buildings as they relate to the existing building. With regard to the multifamily requirements under the zoning bylaw, the bylaw requires 7,500 square feet of area per unit. We far exceed that. We have 97 and 18 feet, so 9,718 square feet per unit. So we easily meet and exceed the lot area requirement per unit. The bylaw also requires 1,000 square feet of usable open space per unit. And again, as detailed, the calculation is provided for you in the site plan package. We far exceed that for each of the units. We have well over 5,000 square feet of usable open space for each of the units. Again, where only 1,000 square feet is required. We far exceed the landscaping requirement under site plan approval. 30% landscaping required. We have 212%, I believe, landscaping as it relates to impervious. So we meet that requirement, as well as the other requirements under the zoning bylaw. The proposed duplex, these are 2 units, modest size, about 2,100 square feet, including a garage. First floor has a kitchen, living room, dining room combination. Second floor has 3 bedrooms and the bath, and I believe there's a bath on the first floor. You do have the floor plans included in the application. You also have the elevation drawings of the building so that you know what it's going to look like. It has been designed architecturally to fit well into the neighborhood, and also to fit well and complement the existing single-family home that's being rehabbed at the front of the building. So I think at this point, Bob Griffin has the site plan package available that he will screen share, and he can go through the plan with you. And then I did outline in the application the requirements for the special permit, but I can go through those after he's walked you through the plan.
Okay, Mr. Griffin? Mr. Griffin, you're still on mute, just so you know.
about now?
Yep, we can hear you now. Thank you.
All right, now the next challenge is to get back onto that PowerPoint. Do you see the blue box for the PowerPoint?
We do.
I'm not sure I do. All right, now I do. And do you see the locus plan now?
We can. Yep.
Excellent. Okay. All right. So here's our locus site, and as Nancy was explaining, this is about 2/3 of an acre of property. The property is pretty flat. It drains pretty well, as we'll talk about, and we have no conservation commission sort of issues near this property. I'm going to show the next slide shows an aerial photograph of where we are. And you can see the property is large enough that it touches, well, it has 124 feet of frontage on Sylvan Street here, and I think 15 plus or minus feet of frontage touching Ash Street here. This aerial photograph is a little bit old. There's a two-family here at, I think that's 107, and there's another house that has been constructed on the lot right behind it here. But anyways, this is us. A couple of pictures of the building, in case you haven't had a chance to drive by recently, but as Nancy said, there's new siding going on the building. This is sort of the classic American four-square existing single family. It's about 26 feet across the front and 28 feet deep. It's a 3-bedroom unit. And you can see the concrete driveway. In the lower portion of this picture is a pool, which shows up on some of those aerial photographs, or a former above ground pool at this location. The new driveway will go across this former above ground pool location. This is the garage, which would be renovated as part of the Unit 1 renovations. So here's our existing conditions plan. Again, the single family in the upper sort of left-hand corner, left side of the site as you're looking at it from Sylvan Street. Sort of a large lawn area in the back here. There's the former above ground pool that I was referring to there. So the proposal is to construct a driveway basically using the same curb cut as presently exists to get into the garage. We don't think we need to adjust the driveway opening at all here. There may be some small repairs required to the sidewalk as part of doing this, and then it'll come back about a total length from sidewalk to end of a little under 200 feet. It's shown as 14 feet wide, and we've put a little curve in it. This follows some discussions we had with some of the neighbors about what they wanted it to look like. You can see that there's room for 6 parking spaces in the back, so 2 parking units inside the building. So this is a 1-car garage for Unit 2 and Unit 3 here, and then some parking spaces out front, and everyone's got plenty of room to turn around and go nose first out towards Sylvan Street. This is a little fence we're showing through the backyard here to separate Unit 2 and Unit 3 to provide some sort of individual space for each of the units. Same thing over here by Unit 1, so a fence to sort of give them a little bit of private area as part of the site plan. This again shows our layout and the zoning table. As Nancy pointed out, the dimensional relief is all associated with the existing building here in number 82, with all of the setbacks are conforming for the 2-family out back here. Let's see. This is the grading and utilities plan. And what I want to point out here is that there's about 4 feet of grade change from Sylvan Street to Ash Street. So pretty shallow slope. So that's 4 feet of grade change over approximately 200. It's pretty evenly distributed. So again, a pretty flat site. There's no signs of sort of stormwater runoff from the site, no signs of erosion along the site perimeter or anything like that. What we're proposing to do is to construct a infiltration trench along the entire length of the driveway here so that water that runs off of the new driveway will go into the trench. The trench is 2 feet wide and 2 feet deep, and just basically allows water from the driveway to run off into this on-site soils. We also are picking up all of the roof runoff from the new building here. You can see there's 4 dry wells at each one at each corner basically of the building, and each one of those dry wells with the crushed stone around it and the like stores about 500 gallons of water. We've provided a stormwater management plan to the engineering department demonstrating that we have no increase in runoff for the 2, 10, 25, and 100-year storms. And in fact, there's a little bit of a decrease in all of those storms as a result of the stormwater infiltration features that are included in the plan. We're bringing in our utilities, at least our water and sewer, from Ash Street. There's a sort of a convenient location to bring them in here. 2 water lines and a sewer line splitting off into the 2 units here. And the electric telephone cable will come in along the driveway from an existing from an existing telephone pole out on Sylvan Street. So pretty straightforward layout and grading design. This shows the landscaping plan, and it does seem like a lot for a residential project. A 2-family project probably typically doesn't have this much landscaping, but the requirements are pretty clear. You are required to show 50% max of your lawn in the landscape area. So when we take the amount of impervious surfaces here, we multiply that times the area that's open space, we end up with 200% landscape area. And we're allowed to have a maximum 50% of that lawn. So we have nice lawn areas next to each unit. So each unit will have a nice area for their children to play in, or exercise, or whatever the case might be, whoever ends up living there. And then we have 50% of the setback in the foundation strip. So this 10-foot area here is 50% planted with shrubs and perennials. Now we have about 7 trees that will be planted as part of this landscaping plan. And Mr. Panzero has had the opportunity to talk to some neighbors about the landscaping from time to time as he's been working on this project. We have, I think, 30 some odd shrubs to be planted, and a lot of perennials and ground cover. But I think the perennials and the ground cover provide color and at different times of the year. This landscaping plan has been carefully prepared by Laura Rutledge of Beverly, a registered landscape architect. And really, I think it's going to look outstanding. We also have on our plan, and I think I perhaps forgot to mention it, if I'm going to go back one here. In the back of the property here, along the 107 Ash Street property, the existing driveway for 107 Ash Street creeps over the property line a little bit. So Mr. Panzero has agreed to provide an easement here. So that's why we have this little jog in the fence line at that back corner. And he's going to be removing a tree that the owner of the property wants to have removed. So that 30-inch tree is going to be removed. There's a very nice tree in the middle of the property. If you've driven by, this 28-inch, I'm not exactly sure if it's a maple or whatever, but it's a nice tree and it's going to stay. And we're working to save other mature vegetation around here as well. The landscaping plan, I also want to point out, we do have a couple of trees going along the edge here. This, again, was discussed with the neighbors, and those are Armstrong red maple trees. So that's a very columnar tree. So it's not the kind of tree that's going to have branches that creep out over the adjacent properties. Or that particular type of red maple will grow pretty much straight up. These plants, again, were all picked out by Laura Rutledge, the landscape architect. And lastly, the plan showing the amount of open space per unit. As Nancy pointed out, we're required to have 1,000 square feet of open space per unit, and we're over 5,000 for each unit. So there really is a lot of space here on this property, a lot of usable space after we get done with our plan as presently proposed. And I do have available, if you want to see them, the architectural plans. The architectural plans were prepared by Duggar Development. Pretty nice looking, well, let me get it here. I think they're just ahead. Colonial style. You see there's a porch for each unit here at the first floor level, and then there's a stairway behind it. So this window here provides light into the staircase coming from the first floor to the second floor. I think this is a bedroom window here on the second floor dormer. So again, nice looking units, and I think it'll be a nice addition to the neighborhood. And with that, I'm going to go back to the site plan and be happy to address any comments or questions you have. And if you'd rather I stop sharing, I'm happy to do that, really, whatever you prefer.
So, Nancy, I know you wanted to talk about some of the waivers, so why don't you mention that? If we can keep the site plan up, that's helpful while we go through questioning.
Okay, I wanted to go through a couple of things. First of all is the requirements under section 34 of the special permit. I've outlined those in the application, and this application meets all of the requirements. I'll go through them for you. The municipal water and sewer systems will not become overloaded by these 2 additional units. We do have separate water service and sewer service that will be coming into the units. The public streets, specifically Sylvan Street, will not become overloaded, certainly with these 2 additional units. The value of other land and buildings will not be depreciated by the proposed use. The overall project is going to be an improvement to this particular lot. Remember, the house had become dilapidated, and we're maintaining the streetscape with a rehabilitated single family in the front. And as Bob just went through with you on the architectural plans, the duplex has been designed specifically for this lot and to complement the existing antique that's located out on Sylvan Street. This site is appropriate for this location, both the use and the structures proposed. This is a mixed use area. There are a number of duplexes in this area. There are a number of multifamilies in this area. And as you saw on the aerial shot that Bob presented, this is directly across the street from the Brookwood property at 75 Sylvan Street. We're adjacent to the mall. We've got a good mixture of services, employment opportunities, and general commuter routes within this area. So it's a good area for this type of development, which is, again, is permitted by special permit. The development, for all of the reasons that I've stated, is certainly not going to adversely affect the neighborhood. The plan has been designed so that there won't be a nuisance or a serious hazard to vehicles or to pedestrians. There will be no backing out onto Sylvan Street, as Bob indicated, and there's a sufficient turning movement room within the site so that both pedestrian as well as vehicular traffic within the site and accessing out onto Sylvan Street can do that in a safe manner. And the use is in harmony with the purpose and intent of the zoning bylaw. There certainly is a desire to provide additional housing in this area of town. These are modest size units, but they're also family units. They're 3 bedrooms. They have nice yards. This is a nice opportunity at this particular site. So I did want to go over that. We did request just a couple of waivers, and those under site plan. And those waivers are simply to do with the plan itself. The size of the plan, we asked for a waiver on that. We asked for a waiver to have the existing and proposed conditions merged onto the same sheet, although I think they have, we did show you a separate sheet for that. And the utilities and grading were shown on the same sheet. Nothing substantive, more technical plan preparation waivers. Other than that, we meet all of the site plan requirements as well as the special permit requirements. So with that, we have worked, as Mike Panzero has worked with the neighbors. We did submit some letters of support from neighbors at 107 Ash Street, 113 Ash Street, as well as the abutter at 80 Sylvan Street. So hopefully you have those in your packages, or I can read them for you. And I think with that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, so Tori, why don't you lead us off tonight?
Sure. So I think I'm going to direct this to staff. We've just seen in reference to materials that we didn't receive. We got 2 letters from abutters, not 3. And we didn't have elevations or ground plans. Were those in the application, or was
yes, I can respond. So the two letters that Attorney McCann is referencing was sent out to the board this morning. They were also
Yes,
in the
we have two,
folder.
but Attorney McCann referenced 3 letters.
Was there a third letter?
Let's see, I have a letter from, which will come in more recently. I have a letter from the McCains at 107 Ash Street. I have a letter from Dana Clark at 80 Sylvan Street, and I have a letter from Matthew Wallace at 113 Ash Street.
Okay, I do not believe that planning staff received the letter from the resident at 107 Ash Street. I could, so I don't think that staff received that. And the other comment, Tori, to answer your question, was in terms of the elevations, I believe that the elevations, we were the last pages of the site plan in the packet, but I'll look into that while we talk.
Okay, no, I'm not seeing them anywhere in the site plan.
The floor plans and the elevations of the exterior of the building, as well as the floor plans, were provided as part of the application package that was submitted. So hopefully that has made its way to you or will.
Okay, so it sounds like the confusion on that may be on our side. Mr. Griffin, would you mind putting the elevation up so I can take a look at it, please? Thank you. Nice looking house. Looks like something that fits in Danvers. I guess the first question I have about this is, it seems like this lot was intended for a layout similar to the rest of the street. And I'd like to know the reasoning for moving the building further back in the lot rather than building where this looks like 2 combined lots. Is this simply to fit in more square footage, moving it further back like this?
I don't think we ever really gave a lot of thought to putting this building up closer to the street. I can see what you're saying. It is wider than some of the other lots in the neighborhood. But I think in part that was because Mr. Panzero had discussed the building location with some of the neighbors, and there was not they were not in favor of having this building located up close to Sylvan Street. And so given that, it made more sense to put it back by Ash Street. I actually think it's kind of, it's a nice location. It's hidden away. It's got plenty of buffer between itself and the adjacent lots. So I think it works. We did consider a little bit having a driveway come in off of Ash Street, but I think it works better coming off of Sylvan Street, actually, and I kind of like it the way it is. So.
Yeah, I'm not sure that it doesn't work. It's
Okay.
It seems out of character with the immediately surrounding houses, but it's an interesting neighborhood, which is why I'm very interested in abutter comments. Attorney McCann, you stated in the application that you thought this would increase the surrounding property values. Could you explain that a little bit, please?
The existing home has gone into a great deal of disrepair. So by improving that, that's certainly going to improve property values in this neighborhood, as well as when you see the overall design. It's a nice looking duplex, and the amount of landscaping that's being added here is going to make this really a very attractive property. And remember, what it was is a dilapidated house and an above ground swimming pool. We're now improving significantly that home that's right on the streetscape, but maintaining the streetscape, and then adding an attractive duplex in the back with a lot of landscaping. That's going to be very attractive. And I think in the conversations that Mike had with some of the neighbors, again, that feeling was expressed that this is going to be an improvement for the neighborhood.
I definitely agree that improving a dilapidated home is good for the value, but we're talking here about building a duplex in the backyard of a house on a street where the other houses have fairly large open backyards. And if this were a neighborhood surrounded by a lot of other streets just like this, I have very serious concerns. And I'm really very interested in what the owners of the abutting properties think.
I did a survey based on the assessor's records of this neighborhood, and I looked at the 25 residential homes, lots within this neighborhood, and the average house lot size in this neighborhood of again of 25 homes was 7,688 square feet. So that's the average lot size. And our lot size is over 29,000. We're going to have 9,700 square feet of area per unit. So that's larger than the average in this neighborhood. And as Bob showed on his graphic, which I thought was very helpful, in the available open space for each of these homes, they're going to have well over 5,000 square feet of usable open space. These are yards they're going to have in this area, which I think is on par with the average lot size within this neighborhood.
It's I feel like the judgment as to whether this adversely affects the neighborhood is very, very subjective. I'm not saying that I oppose this. What I'm saying is that if there are neighbors with objections who had voiced their objections, I would weigh them very heavily. That's, yeah, I think it's a very subjective judgment, and I'm generally inclined to be okay with it because it's a very mixed neighborhood. I think I would like to make sure the minutes reflect that I would heavily weigh abutters' opinions.
Okay, any other questions, Tori?
No, that's all. Yeah.
John, not to interrupt, just in response to Tori's initial comments, I just wanted to let Tori and the group know that the elevations and floor plans can be found in the packet. They were just at they were at the end of the site plan, another site plan document, but in the board packet under this address, under plans and reports, there is now a document, elevations and floor plans. They're on PDF pages 8 through 12 for your review. And I also just looked through my email, and I had never received a public comment from the abutters at 107 Ash Street. There had been some discussion they had asked some questions earlier in the fall about when the meeting was going to take place, but I never received an official comment or question on this project. So if the development team has a comment from the neighbor, I would just request that they send it to staff and I could distribute it to the board. So I didn't mean to interrupt, but just wanted to give a response to that, Tori, your questions.
I do have that letter. I can email it to you now, John, from 107 Ash Street. Mr. Chairman, would you like me to read that letter?
Yeah, why don't you read it? Is it lengthy, Nancy, or is it, okay, go ahead and read it. Read it in.
Okay, this was dated yesterday, January 11th. To whom it may concern, we have asked MJP Properties to make some changes to the fence plan where it borders our home. It has agreed to grant an easement and move the fence at least 2 feet away from the existing driveway, and the fence where the existing chain link fence ends now. We have also asked him to remove the tree that is there as well, to which he agreed. We have no issues with the landscaping in the original plan and support his project. signed Scott and Tina McKay, 107 Ash Street, Danvers, Massachusetts. And that was the area that Bob Griffin pointed out on the plan, relative to the driveway jog and the easement that was being granted.
Okay, thank you. And Nancy, if you can, just email that to Josh, right? So, okay. Lou, you're up next.
Okay. Okay, just a few questions, and I appreciate the presentation. It's very comprehensive, and you know, and so I appreciate it still being up on the screen too, so I can reference it. And this sort of goes into, and just picking up on the abutter question, just for clarification, we did receive a letter from Dana Clark, but there was no address associated. Is he at 80 Sylvan Street?
Yes.
Okay, very good. And I do understand as well that that this did go before the Zoning Board of Appeals with respect to a variance and a finding. I did notice from the decision that it was not unanimous. And so I wanted just to ask if there were any concerns expressed either by any members of the board or by the public at the meeting, that, and again, I'm asking more, I understand that it was granted, but just in terms of mostly for the special permit, if anything that was said is relevant to any of the conditions with respect to the special permit. And so I wanted to see if Attorney McCann, if you can just explain a little bit in terms of if there was any opposition at the Zoning Board of Appeals, either by the members or by the public.
This application actually went to the Board of Appeals twice.
Okay.
It went to the Board of Appeals initially back in September, and that is the decision where there was a dissent on the board, where we have a 4-to-1 vote. We did have a couple of neighbors at that meeting who had some concerns with regard to the project. I think there was, I'm looking back through my notes, at 111 Ash Street, there was a question with regard to stormwater runoff and drainage. 86 Sylvan Street, there wanted a condition that there was no additional development, and that was at the original decision that we went to the Board of Appeals. We then went back to the Board of Appeals in December, and the reason we went back is because as we got the site plan further along, it was determined that the existing home at the front of the lot had a distance between structure issue. So we had to go back to the board on December 14th. That decision was unanimous by the board, and it was unanimous by the board specifically because our abutters showed up and spoke in favor, and specifically said that Mr. Panzero had met with them and had addressed the concerns. Tina McKay at 107 Ash Street spoke at that meeting, as did Matt Wallace at 113 Ash Street. And so the board member who had voted against it said, I'm going to vote in favor of it this time because you've worked with the neighbors. Okay.
Just as a follow-up then, I know you mentioned that some of the concerns that were expressed were at 111 Ash Street. And I know I can see that that's the abutter towards the bottom of the plan we have on the screen now, as well as 86 Sylvan Street. Were those abutters' concerns addressed at the December meeting?
I believe they were, yes, and I believe they were not raised again at the December meeting. Okay,
got it. So have there been any, and so it does seem that Mr. Panzera has certainly worked with the abutters. Have there been, I guess more of late, are there any outstanding abutter objections?
We are not aware of any abutter objections. I think you may have abutters on this call who may, on the meeting, who may speak. But as far as we are concerned, and Bob Griffin can jump in here as well, I believe all of the items of concern have been addressed.
Okay. Mr. Griffin, is that right?
It is, and it's not that I've had these conversations with the neighbor, but I know Mr. Panzero has, and he has come back to me a couple of times over the last few months asking me to change certain things. Most recently, he had asked that, I think there was a town comment maybe in October or November about some of the landscaping, suggesting that taller landscaping might be desirable along the perimeter of the site. And so I asked Mike to check with the neighbors about that, and I believe that the feedback was that taller landscaping was not preferred by the abutters, particularly at 86 Sylvan and 107 Ash. I'm not sure if Mike was able to meet with Ms. Wall at 111 Ash, but anyways, I think I saw Ms. Wall showing up, so we'll probably hear from her before this is over.
Okay. Okay. I did also have so I guess moving from the special permit area, I did have a question just with respect to site plan. Has there been any? It's my understanding that there was some comment back and forth with engineering. Has that been addressed? Where are we there?
Yeah, so we received a letter from the town engineer asking us to provide more information on some infiltration details, some soil characteristics. So we did the test pits in the yard. I think we have test pit locations on this plan here. He had asked us to provide an erosion control plan, which we did. We also provided a little bit more information on some water and sewer details and some pavement and some sidewalk details. All pretty simple, routine stuff, in my opinion.
Okay. Okay. Very good. I don't think I have any other questions. As Tori had mentioned a little bit earlier, I mean, my concerns, particularly as with respect to the special permit, is that the abutters concern, any concerns of the abutters are addressed, and if we have any, and certainly if we have any outstanding concerns or objections from abutters, I definitely would want to hear about that. But I don't have any further questions right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Peg?
Hi. I guess my overall question for this, I have been by the house. It looks beautiful. Did a very nice job. But a number of years ago, and I think Mr. Sears was the only one on the board then with me, we went through town meeting to have an elimination of, I don't know if it was a bylaw, Jim, you can help me, but it was called a 2C waiver, or 3C waiver, 2C or 3C waiver, I can't remember which used to allow the construction of 2 houses on 1 lot, and we were trying to eliminate that. And so I'm just wondering how this differs. Josh, maybe you can help me out with this, from what we were trying to eliminate a number of years ago. Because this appears to me to be 2 houses on 1 lot, and one would think that you would separate the lot and have 2 separate lots.
So I can't speak to the past. I can speak to where we're sitting today. And so what's being applied for in this situation is because it's actually more than 2 units, it's a total of 3 units. This proposal is coming in the zoning definition as multifamily. And so because it's multifamily, if it meets the dimensional requirements, there were a couple instances where they had to go to the zoning board of appeals a couple times for dimensional variances. But essentially what they're applying for is multifamily because it's 3 units. So that's how it's, that's the application that's in front of us tonight.
Well,
Does that make sense? Or?
It's a duplex and it's a single family house.
Sure.
And I can
From
see
a
what
zoning
they're calling it multifamily, but it's still 2 lots. And the concern, 2 houses. And the concern that we had before was that you would have 2 houses on a single lot. So, I don't know.
I believe actually.
That's the concern for me.
Can I respond to that?
Sure. I think you are around then.
Oh, yeah, I was around then. The 2C waiver was just that. It was a waiver. It was not a special permit requirement. It was a process that we could go to the planning board and get a waiver to allow more than one single-family home on a lot. This is and that was gotten rid of. And
I'm getting background noise and I'm having a hard time hearing you.
okay, can you hear? I don't know if people need to be muted, but the change was made and a provision was made in the bylaw now that requires a variance from the Board of Appeals if you want to have more than one single-family home on a lot, unless it's a multifamily. And that's what we have here. And a provision was put into the bylaw to allow multifamily by special permit and has requirements that were not in existence in the 2C waiver days. So we now have the requirements for multifamily, which provides distance between buildings, it provides greater setbacks, it provides open space per unit, all of which we need. And the building inspector looks at this and says 3 units on a lot, whether they're connected or not connected, is a multifamily. And so this falls under the multifamily section of the bylaw under the table of uses, which is a special permit. And then under the dimensional table, it has much greater setback, density, and specifics for multifamily. And so this is actually what came out of eliminating the 2C waiver, which was just that. It was a waiver. It didn't rise to the level of a special permit, and it was a kind of a different animal, and it was done for if you had 2 separate single-family homes, for example, on a lot, that wouldn't rise to the level of a multifamily. So this now, if you want to do something like that, it's a variance from the Board of Appeals. This is different. This is a multifamily development with all of the requirements under the dimensional table that apply to a multifamily development.
Okay, I guess I didn't understand that we were moving it to a variance type thing. I think our concerns were the 2 houses on one lot that, you know, could be sold individually. And that was one of the concerns with the flagpole lot and the, well, not the flagpole lot, but the 2C waiver. I would say overall, I'm against single-family homes in these areas which have backyards doing this, or even the condos that we've seen cropped up. There were single-family homes there. Now they're putting in, you know, condos in the back, or like this, a duplex. I do think that this developer has done an excellent job with his house out front, and there's no doubt in my mind that he will do probably the same type of job for the house in the back. He'll abide by landscaping. It appears that he's gotten in touch with the neighbors and has a line of communication with them, and he's doing all that he should be doing to develop this property. You know, overall, I guess I didn't realize that when we did the 2C waiver that we were putting in new regulations that would allow it to continue to be done. But, you know, I guess he'll do a good job. He's done a good job so far. I just have a hard time when I drive around Danvers seeing the 4 condos in back, or the multifamily in back, or whatever, in areas where they had these single-family homes on these nice lots, big lots. So that's just my personal opinion.
Okay. Any other questions, Peg? Are you all set?
I'm all set.
Jim?
All right, so I guess a lot of my concerns have been addressed. I'll be interested to hear from the abutters who are on the phone so we can get their gist. This was, the zoning relief was allowed for this development, so I'm not sure that we can necessarily, I mean, we can question it, but they did get their approval on that, as was stated by the attorney. My question on the development itself, I mean, this is probably close to a $2 million development. Why are we skimping on the plans? I really don't want to set a precedent on doing small plans. I mean, this is something I've been on the board since '95, and I got to tell you, I've never seen a small plan for something. You know, you can say it's a small development, but the end product's going to be probably close to $2 million in housing. So why the small plan?
So it's really simple. This is just a small piece of land, and it was, you know, it seems easier to work with 11 by 17s than it does to work with 24 by 36s. So we thought we were doing a good thing by using the smaller pieces of paper. But you know, you can obviously fit all of the information you need on the plan. I mean, even the landscaping plan with all of this detail here is very clear. So having the additional larger paper, I don't think provides any real benefit. At the same time, if you guys don't like 11 by 17s, we won't do it again. I'm sorry to have caused a concern.
Well, I got to tell you, it's probably the first time I've seen it.
Okay.
I'm not trying to be argumentative with you. I'm just saying, I think maybe the gatekeeper at the town needs to tell you that at the get-go, that these plans are too small.
Even if we use larger paper, we would still be producing it at the same scale. So it just, you know, it would be, you know, it's the same information. It just happens to be a small piece of property. And I think that using larger pieces of paper, we probably have fewer sheets to deal with. And so we wouldn't be up at, you know, sheet 4 or 5. We'd have, you know, 1 or 2 or 3, I suppose. But anyways.
Yeah, it's just I guess it's a staff thing. If we allow you to do it, then now all the other plans are going to come in. What's the point of having a regulation as on the bylaw that you know has that requirement? I'm not picking on you. I'm just saying. I guess you know a lot of this stuff is presented in technical review and it's presented at the get-go, and to get this far, you know, maybe we should have had a conversation before you did that. But maybe I don't know. What do you think, Josh? I just don't want to see this as a precedent.
Yeah, no, I did not know that this was a concern. Thank you for bringing it up.
Well, it's in the bylaw. It's right in the bylaw. I mean, I don't think have you ever gotten a 17 by 11 plan, 11 by 17 plan?
Sometimes with kind of when you know, like the accessory, you know, like you know, if there's like a sheet or two, you know, like a detailed thing. When you're working with a development team. But I understand your comment. I guess from my perspective, I was able to, you know, I'm able to like read everything on it. It is kind of easy to like flip the pages, but if you think that, if the board and yourself think it's important, you know, to always be,
Well,
you
it's
know,
the bylaw. It's what the bylaw says, and then we're changing the bylaw by accepting this. He's getting a waiver.
Yeah.
I mean, we're setting a precedent. That's all I'm saying. So if we want to change the bylaw at the next town meeting, we can say 11 by 17. That's all. I mean,
yeah, no,
I've never seen 11 by 17. I've never seen it proposed for any type of development. I can tell you. So.
Yeah. It's certainly not common, for sure. I understand the comment, and yeah, we could in the future, you know, this doesn't have to be a precedent in any manner. Obviously, going forward, it doesn't, you know, in the future, they could all be 24 by 36. It's not and at the staff level, we can make sure that's
required when you ask for a waiver. Yep. Other than saying, you know, it's smaller paper, you got to squint a little bit and see all the detail. I don't see the reasoning. I mean, I've seen people come in where it's a minor modification on a huge development on 114 or a shopping mall, and they ask for something very minor, and that's, you know, instead of giving us a plan set of 20 plans, you know, that might be something that we're looking at. Maybe we'll agree to that, but I mean, this is a brand new development, and you know, I don't want to belabor the point, but I think you get my gist. The other things, there were some town comments that the engineer responded to, and the only one I picked up on is they don't want to do the sprinklers. Did we get any feedback? I know it's recommended. Did we get any feedback from the fire department or the town on that as to their responses to the town comments?
Yeah, so we have not received fire department comments on this project as we speak right now. I do not know their how they feel about that particular item.
Well, that was the town engineer, I think, I think they had recommended it, right? Yeah, the town engineer.
Yeah.
So, do we want to condition our approval on that issue? And the proximity of the properties?
Yeah, I mean, we certainly, in conversation with the applicant, sure, I mean, that's something that we could consider adding as a condition, for sure.
Were there any additional comments that the engineer replied to that we need further review on, do you know? I mean, that one stood out to me. I was just kind of going through them.
Sure. So I have not, the engineering comments that are in the folder with the initial comments on the project, the development team responded to those comments with a memo in the correspondence folder. I have not received another, a second wave or second round of engineering comments on this project. So I don't know, if they have any other, I don't know how strongly they feel about that particular item.
Bob,
Yeah, they mentioned the fire hydrant across the street. So I just, again, want to get clarification because you have a lot of houses in proximity. Anything you build now, I think if it's 3 or better, you have to have 3. If it was one building with 3 units or better, you have to have fire suppression. So I know this is 2, but you're next to, houses around you and you have 3 units on one lot. So I think we should get at least some direction on that as part of the approval. Or to be conditioned on that being resolved.
Or we could do a condition, something like planning staff will work with other town departments for a confirmation on what the town would like to do on that particular, the hydrant versus, the sprinkler question. Town staff could work with the applicant to, what would be the best, how to write that, and deal with that situation, that item.
Okay. I think that's all I have, John. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Most of my questions have already been asked. I definitely am interested in understanding feedback from the public. I will say that I got a chance to walk the property, and I was pleasantly surprised how large it was in the way it's laid out. So I compliment the development team of what they've done here compared to some of the other ones I've seen. So why don't we open it up to public comments, Josh? So do you have a list of who wants to comment first?
Sure, I'll just kind of do the order of kind of my correspondence with the public. I guess I would ask Ms. Susan McDonald if she would like to discuss this matter.
Sure, thank you. So I'm at 86 Sylvan Street, and I just want to start out by saying that Mr. Panzara has been very proactive throughout this whole process since he purchased the property in trying to get input from me and what I thought. In fact, to Mr. Adler's point about where the unit is located, in the back rather than the front, Mr. Panzara will tell you, I was pretty adamant about not having that in front, and that's because of the light and blocking the light that I get from my home. So a lot of the concerns in talking with Mr. Panzara was about light and space and maintaining that openness and that airiness. So we discussed a lot, and he agreed. I actually suggested the location. He agreed that was a good location. Keep that big tree because it's a beautiful old growth tree. I suggested the curved driveway instead of another straight driveway to alleviate, that angular tension in design. And we talked also a lot about the landscaping. and to, I think it was Mr. Griffin's point about someone requesting taller landscaping, again, going back to that airiness, making sure there's lightness and lack of claustrophobia. I actually worked with Mr. Panzera to say, put this type of tree here and this type of tree here, so everyone maintains privacy, but there's still airiness and openness and lightness without darkness. I mean, I know where the sun rises and sets all year round, and so I know when I might get blockage of that light. So he worked with me on that. So I have two remaining comments. I don't think Mr. Panzaro had an opportunity to respond to these. One was that you see in Unit 2, there's some extra spaces there. Parking spaces, it would be great if that impervious space could kind of be reduced. The second comment was with respect to the shrubbery. And I just wanted to be sure that that shrubbery wasn't going to be the way it has been with the prior owner, you know, overgrown, crawling over the fences. So I'd spend my summers cutting back the prior owner's shrubs. I just want to make sure that all of that's well maintained, properly sized, properly spaced, as our, again, ongoing conversations with Mr. Panzaro about where the trees are located and the number of trees and the type of trees. So basically, I think the only other comment I would have is just for fine tuning as things go forward, it would be great if Mr. Panzaro would be open to discussing the landscaping as it goes in, just to make sure it looks great for everyone. You know, overall, when I spoke with him about this, I said, in order to make this look really great for, I think, people coming in and people wanting to buy it, but also the abutters and the neighbors, is I really wanted this to look like a little village, you know, with nice landscaping, nice lines, and yeah, be happy for everyone. Happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
So I'd like to just address Mrs. McDonald's comments a little bit. The additional parking spaces near Unit 2 and Unit 3 were triggered by the requirement to have 3 parking spaces for a 3-bedroom unit. So you can see we have 6 parking spaces at the back there, and that's why that additional parking space was added there. In regards to the shrubbery, you know, there is not a huge amount of shrubbery going in here. We have, you know, we do have some privets going on here, so there's 9 privets going here, but, you know, what we're seeing is ground cover and some hostas, some helleborus and daylilies along here, so a lot of perennials, but, you know, I think that, you know, there will be a condominium association that will have, you know, they'll be pooling their resources jointly to maintain the landscaping through the condominium association. So I don't know how we can guarantee that those shrubs won't get overgrown, but I think there's a pretty good chance that they won't. And I think that, you know, clearly the landscaping is a key feature of the sale of this property, and I'm sure that Mr. Panzaro would be happy to work with Ms. McDonald as the construction proceeds, and with Laura Rutledge involved in the landscape plantings. I think that it's going to be professionally done. So I hope that's helpful.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Josh, who else do we have that wants to speak on this project?
Yep, it's Miss Pam Wall.
Yes, hi. I'm Pam Wall, and I live at 111 Ash Street, and I'm in a butter. I'm down, if you look at the map, down closest to the driveway of the proposed duplex. One question I guess I had is I'm wondering why the structure needs to face sideways and maximize, you know, loss of privacy for the abutters. I know the McKays, who were originally opposed, have now supported it, but I'm obviously, you know, the other direct abutter here. So I'm concerned about my loss of privacy, and the way that it's situated now with the driveways. I'm concerned about snow removal. The snow removal would, you know, I'm hearing he's going to be removing the chain link fence, but snow removal would be pushed up against my fence, and I'm concerned with runoff not only into my yard and into my gardens, but potentially causing water in my basement. So I guess I'm wondering why it can't face Sylvan Street, and then, you know, again, that's just one of my concerns. I have not had any conversation whatsoever regarding the landscaping. So I know that, you know, you're saying that he's met with all of the neighbors. He has not met with all of the neighbors. My other question is in regards to the trash removal. I'm wondering if this will be barrels or if this will be dumpster, and if so, where will that be placed? And then my last question is, will there be a fence along Ash Street to prevent, I'm wondering if guests will be trying to on-street park on Ash Street and then cut through the lawn area, because it's already the street is already very highly used by the neighbors that have multiple vehicles for on-street parking, and it would just create, it's a small street. The police are already going down here. 18-wheeler trucks go down the street. It's just really tight, and there's kids in the neighborhood. So I'm just wondering about that as well.
Okay, so first, in regards to the snow plowing, there really is a lot of room on this plan for snow storage. And I would point out that, you know, even these perennial beds here, you know, the perennials die off every fall, and so this, you know, this land where the perennials are is certainly available for snow storage. There's really a lot of space at the end of the driveway. There's adequate space all along the driveway for snow. I don't see, you know, there's about a 10 to 12 foot separation at its closest point between the driveway and the property line here. So I really don't think that there's a likelihood that snow is going to get pushed up against this fence. It's just not a logical place to push snow as a former snowplow driver. In regards to the privacy, I think that I kind of like this orientation because, you know, the uses of the facility that are facing 111 Ash in this instance is a garage and a porch. And we know in the second story, there was that small window that sort of goes into the staircase. So I think that, you know, the living activities in the two units are going to be in the back of the house, and they're going to be, you know, looking out towards the yard area. So I don't think that there is going to be, you know, people staring at your house very much. I mean, people are going to come out of the building, they're going to get into their car, and they're going to go out to Sylvan Street. So I don't see the loss of privacy as being substantial. There is a 6-foot vinyl stockade fence along the property, and we're going to add stockade fence over in this area as well, in addition to the landscaping and, you know, these red maple trees here and here. We'd certainly be happy to work with you with regards to landscaping. I think that Mr. Panzero did try to connect with you during the permitting phases here. And obviously, I'm sorry that he hasn't been able to do that, but he's the kind of guy that's very easy to talk to and to get along with, I think, and tries to at all of his projects in the last 10 years that I can think of, he really tries to work with the neighbors as much as possible, because he knows it's a key to having a successful project.
And what about the fence along Ash Street? Will people be parking on Ash Street and then cutting through?
Yeah, I really don't think that that's a convenient way to get to either of these particular units. I think that, you know, given, you know, we have a 14-foot wide driveway, you can pretty much put cars side by side. So if you had a party, it seems to me like, you know, you're going to be parking people probably, you know, half on the lawn, half on the driveway. I just don't see a likelihood to have people out on Ash Street. And if we want to make that a condition of this project, we can do that. We do have a gate in the project, but that's, you know, so that the property owner can maintain that little portion of Ash Street and not, you know, so if trash accumulates out there or something like that, they can get to it. But it's really not intended to be anything other than that.
And is this trash barrels or is it a dumpster?
It'll be barrels.
Okay.
Any other comments?
No.
Okay, thank you for your input. Josh, is there other folks that want to comment on this project?
Yes, this is Matthew Duggan.
Go ahead, Mr. Duggan.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Matthew Duggan, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 1. Just a couple of items here. So just to, would you confirm that all 3 housing units on this site are condominiums?
That's the intention, yes.
That's accurate?
Yes, that's the intention.
Okay, all right, thanks. Um, uh, the parking, so we just heard the applicant talk about parking for guests that would be half on the driveway and half in the landscaped area. What, along the bottom part of the driveway where the hashes are, is that a trench or what is that to capture runoff from the impervious surface?
Right, so along the south side of the driveway is a 2-foot wide by 2-foot deep trench. It gets filled with crushed stone, some filter fabric, and pea stone at the ground surface so that the grade blends in with the driveway surface. But that is intended to capture runoff from the driveway. So,
Right.
and in regards to parking, you know, half on, half off, that my point was during a party where you had a lot of guests arriving that exceeded the number of parking spaces, you know, set aside these 6 parking spaces that I pointed out earlier, that would be the time when somebody might park, you know, half on and half off. I don't think it's going to normally be required.
Right. And that was, I think, might address the concern that Ms. Wall had about the runoff into her property. That riprap or whatever that material is will that get clogged over time? Would that somehow become less functional as the years go by?
Right. So it really shouldn't. And the way this trench is built is, you know, you dig the trench, you put in filter fabric, you put crushed stone over there, you wrap the filter fabric over the top, and then you top dress the surface with a finer, so usually a colored rounded pea stone. And so all you have to do to you know, if infiltration capacity ever does become diminished, is, you know, take that pea stone off, and then you can replace the filter fabric, and so you can restore the capacity pretty easily if that surface does become clogged. But this is a very long trench, pretty flat grades. I don't see any runoff happening from this site at all.
Yeah, I agree. That sounds, if it was more of a greater slope, then that would probably be more of an issue. But I just have one last thing, Mr. Chairman. So Ms. Wall mentioned about pedestrians accessing that area where it says gate on the plan at Ash Street. So what is the width there between 111 and 107? What is the width between those two property lines?
It's 18 feet.
Okay. So the gate, that's looks like that could be someday, that could actually become part of a driveway, right? So you could extend that pavement in front of the unit 2 and 3, and you could actually make that an egress. Is that accurate?
I don't think so. That's a 3-foot wide gate that we're showing there.
Oh, I know, but not the gate. Forget about, you know, down the road someday, someone decides they want to have it, you know, because Sylvan Street can be a difficult street to traverse, especially during rush hours. People would be more apt, I think, to use Ash Street as an alternative way to leave the site. So what's the potential for that corner there to be someday be a driveway for vehicles?
That would require a return trip to the planning board, because that would be a site plan modification. A major modification, I believe, that would require a public hearing. And this was actually discussed at the Board of Appeals as to whether there would be an access out onto Ash Street. And we stated and agreed there would not be vehicular access out onto Ash Street. And we would accept that as a condition if the planning board wished to make it a condition. But should that gate be removed or should the pavement be extended, that would trigger a site plan modification by the planning board.
Okay, so yeah, so I agree. That's definitely a major modification. I just think that if you look at the way that the structure at 111 is sited there, having that corner be kind of you know, undeveloped as much as possible would have a great benefit to both neighbors at 107 and 111. So I would ask that the planning board somehow maybe think about creating a condition that somebody or the owners of 2 or 3 couldn't arbitrarily just decide that that was going to be a new driveway. So that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your input. Josh, are there any other comments from the public on this application?
I do not believe that anyone else from the public wanted to speak on this matter.
Okay, so let me come back to the board for any follow-up questions. Jim, do you have any follow-up questions?
No, I'm all set. Thank you.
Peg?
I'm all set.
Okay, Lou?
Yeah, I guess just one question. I guess this is with respect to Ms. Wall's point about sort of the orientation of the property. So and so you all had looked sort of at the orientation of the property, sort of in the direction that it was pointing. So you looked at different options. Is that correct?
I think that when the project got to me, Mr. Panzero had already been through some discussions with the neighbor, and he had a house footprint in mind, and he had an orientation in mind, and as Ms. McDonald pointed out, he had a driveway location pretty well set at that point in time. So I think that there were some options discussed again, but it was before I started drawing these plans.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, I have no further questions. Thank you.
Okay, Tori, any questions?
Well, now that I've had some time to look at the floor plans, they're very nice. The elevations look very nice. The living area appears to be entirely concentrated in the back of the house. So while I do appreciate hearing Ms. Wall's concern about privacy, I think that's addressed. But regarding her concerns about parking on Ash Street, I think that's a very legitimate concern. And if we could take the gate out of the picture and have fence there, I think that eliminates that concern. I don't know that there's anything we can do to prevent future development of that as a driveway, as Mr. Duggan mentioned. But if there's a willingness to remove the gate, I think that improves the plan.
Okay. I don't have any follow-up questions. So is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Was that from Lou? Okay, motion from Lou, second by Jim. Let me just do the roll call vote. Tori?
Yes.
Peg?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
And Lou?
Yes.
And I'm in favor of closing the public hearing. Is any more discussion from the board? Is there any other additional information you're seeking, or is there a motion to approve the special permit?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to be able to see the engineering approve what was sent, what the applicant responded to, and, you know, also the fire department. I agree with Jim. I think it's over 3 units, so I don't know why this would have to have sprinklers, but we always used to get documentation assuring us that it had been reviewed and they were comfortable, and I haven't seen that yet for those two, for engineering or for fire.
Fire. Okay. I don't disagree. So I would ask the applicant, would they like us to consider a motion for continuation?
We can certainly do that for purposes of getting the engineering and the fire department comments. The other item I would offer is that, as Josh had said, that the applicant would work with staff with regard to the sprinkler issue, because our fire code building and we could take a condition and would take a condition that the engineering department comments are satisfied, because it was pretty standard type of comment. I think Bob represented that, and it seemed to be that in my review of it. So
Excuse me, Nancy. Hey, Josh. Okay, Josh is back on mute. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry, Attorney McCann. Go right ahead.
So would the board consider conditioning the approval on getting the engineering department's satisfaction with the comments, which other than the sprinkler item, which we can work with staff on, as Josh had suggested, I don't think there were any issues with addressing the engineering department comments. So I throw that out as a possibility that I think this board has done in the past when the comments have been pretty straightforward from engineering.
So let me ask my fellow board members, how do you feel about taking conditions, or are you more comfortable seeing the report yourself? Peg, let me go back to you if you wouldn't mind.
I always like to see the report, but, you know, obviously I'll go with the will of the board. If the will of the board feels that planning staff can determine or can receive the approvals from engineering and fire as a condition, and they were approvals, then I would go along with that.
Jim, how do you feel about that?
I'm fine with the condition. I think the only issue really that I saw that hadn't been responded to by the applicant, you know, I mean, it was recommendation, but they said they didn't want to do it. So I just want to see how that plays out. If it's not a requirement, then it's not a requirement, but I'm willing to have it be a condition on the approval.
Okay, Tori, how do you feel?
Yeah, I'm okay with it being conditioned.
And Lou?
Yes, I'm okay with it being a condition as well.
All right, so I'm comfortable with the condition, but are we also going to add a condition around no parking on Ash Street and the removal of that gate? I think that's a pretty good idea. I don't understand if the intent is not to access Ash Street, why we need a gate. It just seems like we're encouraging that crossing of that location.
Could I ask a question to Bob Griffin? Is there a reason about the gate? Is it so that someone living in Unit 3, for example, if they want to get to the mall or something for, it's certainly just for pedestrian access. Is that the thought process for having a gate there for pedestrian access to go walking down Ash Street as opposed to go walking down Sylvan Street?
Well, I wasn't really thinking about the mall at the time. I was really just thinking about maintenance of the property. Obviously, you know, they should be maintaining their landscaping along Ash Street, and you know, I suppose if the water and sewer department were going to, you know, walk along where the water lines are, you know, they'd want to get access across that line. But I don't think it's a critical part of this project. If the board feels that this is an important gate to remove, then let's remove the gate.
Okay. I'm comfortable with that. I would assume, Tori, you're comfortable with that. Any other comments from the board members on the removal of the gate? Jim?
I'm fine with it. We can't do anything about parking on Ash Street, though. That's within the purview of the selectmen. I mean, if it became a problem, they could put no parking signs up. But I mean, in light of the size of the driveway that goes into the project and the guest spots, I mean, I don't see this as a real problem.
Okay. Peg? Did we lose Peg?
No, she's muted.
This is the longest meeting ever. This is one meeting. Right at 7.
It looks like Peg is unmuted now.
Okay. Peg, can you hear us? What's your feeling on the gate?
Yeah, she's muted again.
Lou, can you have a comment on the gate?
I think it's good. I think removing the gate would be good, and that would address the concerns about sort of cutting through. So I'm in favor of that condition of the gate being removed.
Okay, so is there a motion to move forward on the special permit tonight with these conditions, these 3 conditions we talked about? Removal of the gate, staff reviews the input from the engineering and fire departments. Is there a motion to move forward on approval of the special permit?
Move to close the public hearing.
I think we did that, didn't we, Jim? Or no?
If we
Yeah.
didn't, I'm pretty sure we did.
Yes, it was previously done a couple minutes ago, but
Okay, so you want me to read the motion, John? Or,
Sure.
all right, let me get it. Hold on.
it should be, Jim, it should be in like the special permit decision in the folder.
Yep, I have it. I have it. I just gotta grab it.
Very good.
This is to certify that at a meeting of the Danvers Planning Board held on January 12, 2021, having been requested under Table 1, Section 30.3 of the zoning bylaw for property located at 82 Sylvan Street, Assessors Map 57, Lot 25, voted to approve the request submitted by MJP Properties, Inc. for a special permit to allow multifamily. The special permit is associated with a 3-unit multifamily development as shown on the following plans, site plan entitled Site Plan Review, and Special Permit Plans 82 Sylvan Street, Danvers, prepared by Griffin Engineering, dated October 14, 2020, revised to January 6, 2021, consisting of 7 sheets. Prior to issuance of a building permit, 1, the special permit certificate of action shall be recorded at the Southern Essex Registry of Deeds along with a site plan approval certificate of action. The board finds that pursuant to Section 30.3 of the zoning bylaw, conditions for special permits, all the following conditions have been satisfied. 1, the municipal water and sewer systems will not become overloaded by the proposed use. 2, the public streets will not become overloaded by the proposed use. 3, the value of other land and buildings will not be depreciated by the proposed use. 4, the specific site is an appropriate location for the use or structures. 5, the use developed will not adversely affect the neighborhood. 6, there will not be any undue nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians. 7, the proposed use or structures will be in harmony with the general purpose of the bylaw. Any approval of this special permit shall lapse within 3 years from the grant thereof, if construction has not begun by such state except for good cause. And then I think we want to add in the conditions, Josh, that we mentioned, the condition.
Yep. That was just a draft prior to the meeting. We had.
Do we want to read it into the right? What did you
Sure.
have written out on that one?
I would. So I'd say the removal of the gate at the gate along Ash Street. I'm just paraphrasing. I'll obviously write it much.
Yep. Removal of the gate on the southern border of Ash Street, and then the second was condition on.
Planning staff will work with town staff, including the fire department and engineering department, to resolve any remaining any issues or items, something along that nature.
Okay, so I think that's it, right?
It will sound better than that, but yeah.
Yeah. All right, so that's the motion. Is there a second?
Second,
Okay, let me do a roll call vote. Tori,
Yes.
Lou,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Peg,
Yes.
and I'm in favor of the special permit as well. So, good luck to the development team.
I think you need a site plan decision.
That's right.
Okay.
So we also need to have a motion to close the public hearing for the site plan, and then we need to have a vote on the site plan as well.
All right, is there a motion to close the public hearing on the site plan?
Move to close the public hearing on the site plan.
That's by Tori. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, roll call vote. Tori,
Yes.
Lou,
Yes.
Peg,
Yes.
Jim. We lose you, Jim? Good.
Yes.
Okay, and I'm in favor as well to close the public hearing on the site plan. And is there a motion to accept the site plan as presented?
There's a motion, John. I can read the motion. Do you want me to read the motion to the record? Because there are waivers.
Yes, please.
At a hearing held on January 12, 2021, the Danvers Planning Board voted to approve the site plan submitted by MJP Properties Inc. for property at 82 Sylvan Street. Assessors map 57, lot 25, shown on the following site plan, entitled Site Plan Review and Special Permit Plans, 82 Sylvan Street, Danvers, prepared by Griffith Engineering, dated October 14, 2020, revised to January 6, 2021, consisting of 7 sheets. This approval is granted with the following waivers from Section 4, Site Plan Approval of the Danvers zoning bylaw. 1, Section 4.8.2A, context of a site plan. Required the plan shall be preferably 24 by 36. Requested the plans are drawn at 11 by 17 due to the small size of the project. 2, Section 4.8.7, utility plan, Section 4.8.8, 4.8.8, grading and drainage stormwater plan. Required utility plan and a grading and drainage stormwater plan. Requested utilities and grading are shown on the same sheet. 3, Section 4.8.11, lighting photometric plan. Required a lighting photometric plan. Requested no submission of a lighting photometric plan. General conditions as approved by the planning board, January 27, 2004, amended through February 27, 2018, which I'm not going to read. This approval is also subject to the attached list of general conditions approved by the planning board on January 27, 2004, amended through February 27, 2018, which are incorporated in the certificate of action by reference. Any approval of the site plan shall last within 2 years from the grant thereof if construction has not begun by such date except for good cause.
It is a motion to accept the site plan with the waivers that have been highlighted. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call vote. Tori,
Yes.
Lou,
Yes.
Peggy said yes.
Oh, I didn't hear my name. Yes.
Yep. Jim,
Yes.
and I'm in favor as well. So motion carries.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your time. Have a good evening.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, best of luck. The next item on the agenda is 3032 Endicott Street, request for approval of a major modification to approved site plan pursuant to Section 4 of the zoning bylaws submitted by Chemical Development Corporation for property in Danvers Port Industrial Zoning District. The applicant is proposing to install an above-ground storage tank in AST, Assessors Map 64, Lot 147. So I'll turn it over to the applicant, and if the individual can just identify themselves for the board and the public.
Mr. Chairman, for the record, my name is Bob Rigo. I'm with Riverhawk Environmental.
Yes, go right ahead.
Okay. Here with me tonight from the applicant is Tony Mel, the operation manager for this facility. Basically, 30 Endicott Street is an existing developed industrial property. I'll actually share my screen too, so I can show you the
Yeah.
plan.
That would be great, Bob. Thank you. Yep, I was just gonna ask if you, yep, so if you can do that, that'd be great.
Okay, we'll give it a whirl. Okay, I think that's it. So the site has access off Endicott Street. It's approximately an 8-acre property with a large existing industrial building on the site. The property is kind of bound to on the southerly side by a bordering vegetated wetland, which is alongside of an existing perennial stream, which is Waters River, I guess. And then along the westerly side of the property is a railroad, and further west of that is another bordering vegetated wetland. The existing site is improved with an industrial manufacturing facility. And on the southerly side of the property and of the building, there's an existing 10,000-gallon storage tank for a chemical that's used in the manufacturing process. That chemical happens to be methyl acrylate, or MMA for short. And that's a glue. It's kind of a super glue that's used in the process used inside the facility. They're looking to, as part of this project, to add a second tank for storage of the same chemical. So there's an existing secondary containment dike which surrounds the current above ground storage tank, which holds the MMA product. We're proposing to install a second tank and expand the structure, the secondary containment structure, or dike, to provide enough storage to hold if there was ever a spill from the largest container, which is 10,000 gallons. The dike would be sized such that it would hold the volume of that tank plus whatever volume is taken up by the existing tank in the secondary containment. Part of the to prevent any erosion from occurring during the project, we're proposing to provide erosion controls along the perimeter of the site up against adjacent to the wetlands, and I'll go back to the first sheet, but all the way up to where the pavement intersects with the 100-foot buffer zone along the railroad to the west. And basically, that's about it for the general description of the project.
Okay, thank you for the overview. Lou, why don't we start with you?
Sure. Just some questions I have with respect to the tank. Now, I noticed, so the one question I had, and I think you answered the question, was the size of the existing tank. So the existing tank is 10,000 gallons. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So this additional tank is a, so I guess wondering, so are we looking at, so the other tank will be 10,000, so that's a combined of 20,000 gallon capacity. Is that the plan, to double the capacity?
That's the plan, correct. Double the capacity from 10 to 20.
Okay. Now, not understanding how these tanks work, is that something, I mean, the amount of chemical that's at the property, will that be, is it, I guess, is it held to capacity, or is a tank typically only kept 1/2 full, 2/3 full? So I wanted to know, what's the maximum amount of chemical that will be on the property in the tanks?
That's probably a better question for Tony. Maybe if he could chime in, but typically you would keep 85% capacity of an above ground storage tank. So my guess would be 8,500 gallons times 2, or 17,000 gallons at any one point in time. But maybe Tony, if you could chime in and answer that.
That would be great. Yes, please.
That is correct. The max that we would ever have would be that amount. What we are looking at.
What amount?
Here, sorry?
The maximum would be what amount?
I'm sorry, the 8,500 times 2 number.
85% times
Yes, yes.
8,500 times 2. Got it. Understood.
Yes.
Okay.
And so the way that the tanks work is the tanks are unloaded. Currently today, a tanker will come in, and that as it's unloaded, the production area is consuming that chemical continuously throughout the manufacturing process, and that takes us currently 2 to 3 days to drain the tanker into our manufacturing process. The difficulty that we run into is being able to secure a delivery of a secondary tanker at exactly like that third day when you go to zero to keep the production area from slowing down. What we do currently today is that we actually purchase this same chemical in drums as a buffer stock. And so what ends up happening is that those are actually stored within the facility themselves. And then you have a lot more movement of that chemical itself. So what this will allow us to do is that we can have a little bit more flexibility with our relief, our deliveries of the chemical, and being able to store more in an actual tanker style situation versus individual drums that have to be continually moved with forklifts and moved throughout the facility. And you have a lot more chance of an unplanned spill along those situations. So the total quantity that we would store at any given time doesn't necessarily grow too much. And I would say the only reason where we would have both tanks being full at any one given point would be in a situation where a delivery is coming necessarily possibly right before a holiday or a snowstorm. And that is because there's a perceived difficulty in having deliveries through a period of time.
Okay, got it. And one question I guess for you as well is and again, a lot of these questions I'm asking comes, just in terms of Danvers Port and concerns about also I had a concern about. Tell me about the volatility of the chemical.
It is a flammable chemical. And so we do have quite a bit of regulations that we are burdened to throughout and that we are monitored through. It is a chemical that we do have to have some specialty reporting through OSHA and through specific guidance along those areas. I can say that we do have a fairly robust program to deal with the hazardous nature of this chemical. And this chemical has been in use at this facility. I believe it began in the either late 80s or early 90s is when that historically began. And we do have regular visits with the fire department, regulatory bodies, and with our own internal regulatory team on site as well.
Do you know what and I know that this came in terms of, I'm asking this in the context of a comment from the fire department from January 5th, is in terms of are you aware of what the approved quantities are with respect to the property? Like in terms of, I guess the concern I have is when you're adding a tank like this, particularly one that is of a substance that has volatility, is to make sure that we're consistent with that we're not going beyond what's approved for by the fire department.
We did go through this with Captain Brooks today. He came on site and we did go through some discussions with him. And from our, I believe that the proper term is the legal land use application that we have on record. What we have from that is our maximum allowable amount is 150,000 gallons to be on site at any given time. Through our reporting that we do yearly with the fire department, we are, for the last 2 years, fluctuate in the 120,000 gallon range. So by the addition of these 10,000 gallons, barring no other changes, that would increase us to 130,000 gallons, which still leaves a buffer of 20,000 gallons of capacity through our operating license today.
Okay. Got it. And thank you for that information. And one last thing with respect to the, understanding that there are some abutters that are like I know there's some abutters on Broad Street, You have the senior housing on the other side. What is the, have you had any feedback, and we may hear it tonight, but have you heard anything from any abutters?
I have not, no.
Okay.
Nor have I.
Okay, very good. I have no further questions at the moment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Peg?
Am I on now?
We can hear you. Go right ahead, Peg.
Jeez, I'm getting old. I really don't have any further questions. I was concerned about the volatility. What are you manufacturing?
We produce industrial adhesives, and those adhesives are used in production of items such as school buses. They're used in vehicles, in marine yachts and things like that. And so it basically goes into a wide variety of industrial uses throughout. We actually export all the way throughout the upper U.S., and then we also export to about 10 to 12 different regions of the world as well.
Oh, that's interesting.
If I may, this might provide some clarity. It's a class 2 flammable liquid, and that diesel fuel is a class 2 flammable liquid. So it has similar boiling point to diesel fuel. So it'd be similar in terms of flammability, and it'd be similar to a fuel like diesel. Not as flammable as gasoline.
Okay, are there any special provisions with the tanks that, would contain, say something happened to one tank and the other tank, the way they're constructed would prevent it from spreading to the next tank? If there was some type of explosion or fire or whatever?
Yeah, the secondary containment is sized to hold the volume of the largest container. So plus the volume of the other container that's taken up within the secondary containment, if that makes sense. So there's provisions to hold the entire volume of one tank if it ruptured or released.
Okay.
And the tanks are made of such material that they're compatible with what they're storing.
Okay. So basically you're adding another tank so that you don't have to run out of MMA in the production process if your delivery doesn't come in on time or whatever.
That's correct. And another aspect that we are looking at is the redundancy for additional maintenance and things like that. The current tank is a 25-year-old tank. We just actually got it inspected this year, and it passed all applicable inspections under Massachusetts state law. And so it's also just the need for, if maintenance is needed in the future, there are also no business disruptions or using a unfamiliar process while that is going on within the facility.
Okay, and you're expanding the concrete pads so they'll be sitting side by side. I think that's it for questions from me.
Okay, thank you. Jim?
Yeah, I just concerned about safety and concerned about, the, obviously that area is no stranger to explosions and adhesives. There was a big explosion at the Bostik plant several years ago in Middleton, and they do adhesives also. So there's concern about, when you say that you have 120,000 gallons, is that on site at one time between the tank and the barrels?
It is a mixture of that chemical. So this is the raw material that we use to produce the finished goods that we then produce. And so what we do is that we monitor how those items are kind of stored and within our facility. So as the raw material, and we basically monitor that as the maximum that we ever have at any given period in time, that does go in. Our typical actual load that we usually have day to day is much less. It's actually closer to probably the 50,000 gallon range, but there may be certain spike periods where you do see some higher quantities from there.
Was the applicant, maybe Josh can answer this, was the applicant required to give notice to the Endicott Street houses, or were they too far away? Because you've got some neighborhoods in proximity, you know, on Endicott Street and thereabouts.
What do you, I guess, for clarity on the Endicott houses, what are you referring to?
Looking at the plan, there's a house, it's not, the street, if you're going down Endicott Street until you get to, what is it, Water Street. Mr. George can help me on it. The neighborhood in there, did they get notice of this or no?
Yeah. I'm actually taking a look at the labels, and I don't necessarily see that they, it seems that Broad Street received notice, but I'm not sure whether or not any of the Endicott, the streets along, whether or not any of the homes on Endicott Street, like from the Fox Hill School down,
right,
received notice.
Yeah, so if I could just respond to that also. I was looking at the labels just now also, and it doesn't, there aren't that many, but there's less than 10, I think, abutters who are certified abutters, from the assessor's office. So it looks like, it doesn't look like there's any Endicott Street addresses in the labels. So I do not believe that they were notified.
Yeah, I'm just concerned about, adding more. I think if the neighborhood knew that we'd have up to maybe 130,000 gallons of this flammable material that, had experiences with other plants, not saying your plant doesn't have the safety controls in effect like Bostic did not. My brother worked at the company. He had left the building at 7 o'clock. It blew up at 7:15. This is probably 5 or 6, 7 years ago. So I'm a little wary about adhesive products and flammable materials, and I'm sure they're done, quite often in industrial buildings in industrial areas. This is abutting a neighborhood, so that's my concern. And where the neighbors have not really, due to proximity of 300 feet, have not gotten any notice of this, I'm just concerned that maybe we could get some input, or should have some input for the neighbors for this project. That's it, John.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Tori?
I don't have any concerns with this.
So I share the same concern that Jim raised. I mean, we know there's a number of single-family homes on Endicott Street, even leading into the BJ's entrance, that street there. So I'd like to see more notification, Josh, given the uniqueness of what's being asked, given the history of the neighborhood, that the neighborhood's fully informed of what's going on.
So just for clarification purposes, when we're using the term neighborhood, or the residents it seems like the board is interested in notifying, what kind of geographic area, I guess, is the board thinking should be notified? I guess if you could just give me a little bit more like information or specificity about where, like who and where they're located.
John?
Lou, maybe you can help us the best to say who should be getting notified.
Yeah.
Josh, you might not know the history. It's been a while, but that area went through
I remember. No, 06, right, or 05. One of them, yeah, I remember. I could feel it from Beverly, so yeah, I remember.
And John, I want to add, just in terms of the neighborhood, having grown up on 77 Water Street, a little bit away from there, but still relatively close to the corner of Endicott and Water. And my mom still lives at the house. I think just the area, I mean, really, the area that was frankly, the area that was impacted by the explosion. I mean, I think is, which really was all immediately, which would be almost frankly going from the Peabody border, really going down toward, towards the port corner, like where the diner is. I mean, that's a very large area, but it does. But frankly, I mean, that certainly is an area that was covered, and I'm not sure how we would, in terms of going about notification, perhaps even notification specifically to the town meeting members in precinct 3, which is the precinct involved.
Yeah, I'd like to see us have a more aggressive outreach. This is a unique period of time, as you know, and I'm sure that the company's doing a very good job, but have we got any public comments yet, Josh?
We did, we received, Mr. Duggan, wanted to ask some questions or comments. Did also receive, we received an email from Mr. Bill Bradstreet. He had a number of he had 4 questions that he wanted me to ask. They were in the same vein of what the planning board member, what the group has already asked, but I was, when we got to the public comment period, I was gonna just go through them and have the applicant respond. But other than those 2 members of the public, those are the only kind of correspondence that I received. I did not receive any emails or phone calls over the past couple weeks in the kind of broader, what we're calling neighborhood that, John, that you and Lou were kind of no one from like the neighborhood has reached out. Yeah, an official kind of, I did send out I sent out a legal notice to the 10 plus abutters, that certified abutters from the assessor's office. But it looks like when I even look at the assessor, those labels, most of the abutters that receive notification are kind of other commercial entities in the, surrounding vicinity. It looked like there was only kind of 1 or 2 or 3 kind of residential homes that I think that you were both kind of showing concern about. So that's where the public kind of stands on this one.
This is Matthew Duggan. Can I chime in with a comment, please?
Sure, go right ahead, Mr. Duggan.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Matthew Duggan, town meeting member, precinct 1. So I've been asked by a fellow town meeting member to ask about the 2 natural gas pipelines that traverse that area. And I'm told there's a compressor station at the end of Broad Street. Are any of those 3, the 2 pipelines or the compressor station, do they have easements through this property for this applicant?
I do know that if you can scroll up on the screen that's being shown, I can kind of show about where the national gas, the gas pipeline is. So at the very tip of the drawing, so you'll see that kind of like our property kind of crosses into this area right there. Up to the right of this area is the national gas pipeline, and that crosses that portion, that very tip of our property. That's at the far side of the building.
Okay. Yeah, and I see a notation there, the Tennessee Gas Transmission Company. So, and there's also another one, a Northeast and Maritimes gas line. So one is 30 inches in diameter and the other is 16 inches. I don't know how long you've been working at this facility. Have you ever known of any issue with those gas lines at that location?
I've been with the company for close to 3 years now. And since my time here, we've had no instances with the gas lines or anything along those areas. I do know that there is like National Grid owns a portion of the property that does abut us. And during our time, we've had no situations or issues on anything related to natural gas.
Okay. All right, thank you for that information. And then I think Mr. Bradstreet, I had spoken with him earlier today, and he was concerned about these tanks. Did you mention during your presentation that there are some types of, first of all, is this material, it's liquid, I believe, right? It's like, you said it was like super glue, so it's liquefied?
It is a liquid, yes.
And are there berms, or what is the containment system there to keep to protect the wetlands that are just in close proximity, not only along that rail line, but the Waters River that you mentioned? Say there was a spill or some type of breach for the containers, these two containers. What's the industry standard for capturing that material before it runs off? Or
Bob, would you like to answer that question?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know if my internet just went out, so I don't know if I heard the complete question. But basically, there's secondary containment which surrounds the entire perimeter of the tank, and that's it's a concrete wall that's approximately 3 feet high, which would contain any of the liquid if it were ever to spill out.
Okay. And is it secure in terms of like fencing and locked access?
Yes, the facility itself has a perimeter around the entire facility with continuous monitoring. There is an additional gate just north of the tanks themselves, which prevents any vehicles from coming through that area. That is locked continuously, except for loading and unloading or during snow removal. And the entire property is alarmed and monitored on a regular basis.
Okay. All right. And thank you for that info. In terms of the Danvers Fire Department, they do inspections to verify that this is all kept up to code, and that if there was some type of accident there, that they would be able to have access to that area in order to remediate. I don't think that material you would use water on, right? You would need some type of foam suppression. Is that on site there, a foam suppression system?
We do. Just north of this area where the tanks are themselves is a foam suppression room with access. So that actually will go into the actual production areas as well. And the fire department does have connections in that area to hook up directly to foam to douse the area as needed. We have quite a bit of outreach with the Danvers Fire Department. Every year, at a minimum, we have a permit review with Captain Brooks, who comes through each year and recertifies all of our permits to operate with the chemicals that we do have. Each of the surrounding fire, I guess the battalions, we have typically come out to our facility where we walk them through all of the unique hazards that they may be experiencing at our facility and identifying where those may be located for any of those situations. So on a regular basis, we are doing outreach with them and bringing them on site to, one, make sure that we are fully in compliance, and then as well that they are fully aware of where everything is located, how we're operating, and to make sure that there's no changes that occur that would cause any concern as well.
That's great. That sounds like you're being proactive, and definitely would be able to address any adverse situation. So thank you again for that information, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity to speak.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Duggan. So, what I'd like to suggest to the applicant, and I hopefully you can appreciate the uniqueness of the experience that neighborhood went through, that we continue the public hearing with some additional outreach. I know it's not probably what you want to hear, but the timing of this application coming off the holidays, given everything that's going on, I just think we, as a board, as at least from the chairman's perspective, and I've heard it from a couple other members, we need to be proactive that the neighborhood understands what's going on here. It sounds like you've managed the risk, but I think we owe it to the community in that particular neighborhood to have additional feedback. So are you receptive to continuing this public hearing to our next meeting, which I believe is the 26th of January?
Yes, we would be good with that. And tell us we want to be, good stewards with the neighborhood and maintain that operation. We know we are unique, and we do know that we are kind of nestled in the area itself. So we would be open to that as well.
Great. Okay. So can I ask Lou? Can you work closely, if you have the time, with Josh's in the planning division to make sure we notice the appropriate people? And I do like your idea that the town meeting members that represent this particular area get notified.
No, sure, I'd be happy to do it. I think it was a good point, and thanks to you and Jim for raising this issue. I'm happy to do it.
Okay, so is there a motion to continue the public hearing to the 26th of January?
Not to interrupt, I was wondering if it would be appropriate to, just before we continue this item, if we could quickly go through Bill Bradstreet's questions. I know several of them have already been answered. He was kind of adamant that they be asked tonight. I would defer to you if maybe we could ask at the next meeting, but just wanted to let you know, just wanted to kind of, discuss with you what you would like to do.
So maybe what I'd suggest, Josh, is that we, provide those questions to the applicant,
Sure,
so they can prepare
Okay.
for that for the 26th.
that sounds great. And I will be happy to work with Lou, obviously reach out to the public, and I think that the town meeting member, reach out to them specifically was a great idea, so thank you.
Sure, happy to do it.
Okay, so is there a motion to continue the application to January 26th?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Tori?
Yes.
Jim, can you hear us? Are you in favor?
Yes.
Okay, Peg?
Yes.
Lou, I assume you're comfortable, and the chair is comfortable, and I appreciate the applicant sensitivity to this issue.
Thank you for giving us the chance to meet with you all tonight. Enjoy your evening.
You too. Thank you. Okay, so the next item is being continued at 74 Holton Street. Request for site plan approval submitted by Danny Sequoia, I believe, for property at 74 Holton Street pursuant to Section 4 of the zoning bylaw. That property is in Industrial 1 in Tapley Overlay Zoning District. The applicant is proposing to modify the landscaping and parking, assessors map 50, lot 155, and the applicant's requesting that we continue without discussion until our January 26, 2021 meeting. So is there a motion to continue this to the 26th?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, Tori?
Aye.
Peg?
Aye.
Lou?
Yes.
Jim? Yep.
Aye.
Yep, and I'm in favor as well. So this will be continued to our next meeting. Josh, I'll turn it over to you on planning staff, future dates, anything you want to bring up to the board.
Nothing specific, our next meeting is, like you had mentioned earlier in the evening, our next meeting is Tuesday, January 26th. So it looks like the 3032 Pickup Street item will be on that meeting, and likely that 74 Holton Street item will also be on that meeting.
Okay, great. And we have two minutes, the minutes of July 14th and the minutes of October 13th meeting that I'd like to open up for discussion. Why don't we start with the minutes of the 14th of July? Any questions on those minutes?
Move to accept as written.
Okay, there's a motion to.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Tony.
Yeah, just a minor thing. I'd like to correct the spelling of my name on page 5.
Yes, I will make sure that all the names are, everything will be corrected. I was trying to get that to the group so we could vote on it tonight. It was our longest meeting of the summer, so there was definitely some of those type of errors, but I will ensure that those grammatical errors are fixed. Sorry about that, Troy.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second with the edits. Lou?
Yes.
Peg?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Tori?
Yes.
And I'm in favor of the minutes as well. So let me turn to the minutes of October 13th. Any conversations around the minutes of the meeting of October 13th? If not, I'll accept a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
Move to accept the minutes of October 13th.
Okay, that's by Tori. Is there a second?
Second.
By Peg. Jim?
Yes.
Lou?
Yes.
Peg?
Yes.
Tori?
Yes.
And I'm in favor as well. So that concludes the formal agenda. Is there anything else that anyone wants to bring up? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Okay.
Aye.
Get everyone would need to do that. So stay safe, everyone, and we'll see you on the 26th.
Yes.
All right. Take care.
Okay, take care.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night.
Have a great night, everyone. Thank you very much.